Welcome, Stephanie. It's really great to have you here as part of our Tech 10 series, where we talk to experts on various aspects of technology, including trends and how certain points of view can be really relevant to technology leaders. And today I'm particularly excited because we're talking about a topic that's key to what I do at Alex Partners in my interest specifically. And I know it's a core part of what you do within MIT CISR. That is platforms.
Thank you, Clive. I am delighted to be here, and you are right. Platforms is a major part of MIT CISR research and has been for years.
Excellent. Well, look, so the focus of today's conversation is really around leveraging enterprise platforms to create value. And a great place to start is to define what we mean by the word platform.
So, when we talk about platforms, we're talking about a set of data, technology, and processes bundled together that you can use to innovate and to pull out costs. And a lot of companies also include the talent to match, to manage that that set of assets.
If we take that a bit further, in my experience, I know quite a few companies have really struggled with how they move and transition from what is often corporate spaghetti to real platform-based models. How does that resonate with your own research? And how do you think companies have really addressed these challenges?
Probably in our latest research that we did, our latest survey, it was 49% of companies were in silos and spaghetti. And we described that as typically product-driven, very complex landscape of processes, data, and technology. And each product or service is going to have its own processes, data, and technology. And then companies need to go and get data from one silo to another silo. And if you then look at an architecture, it's all of these stovepipes, as you say, but with this overlay of these point-to-point solutions on them. This arises because this is how people used to go and organize themselves. And so often these companies have been very successful, and they've had a series of very successful products or services. But as we move into a digital economy where we're seeing the need for reuse, the need for efficiency, that kind of architecture is not going to be useful in the present.
So one of the things actually it made me think about is the fact that a number of execs I've spoken to, senior within their organizations, or frankly also PE sponsors as well, often struggle with the concept of legacy and also tech debt. And I think, if I think about legacy, sometimes not all legacy is bad. You can have really stable old applications that are workhorses, for want of a better phrase, that really are reliable. They will get the job done. The risk, of course, is that over time, the knowledge of that platform disappears. But actually, in the short to midterm, that legacy isn't something that will cause an issue to your organization. It may pose a risk longer term. But then, of course, there are other parts of legacy where platforms may be out of support. They are more susceptible to cyber risk and so on. And the way I like to think about this is actually for those types of legacy, it's essentially a tax on you. And when you think about tech debt is building a tax you've got to pay at some point. You are deferring investing now, but that payment will need to be made at a later stage. And not only that, every time you want to make a change to your existing platforms, you're having to pay an additional bit of debt tax because that platform may be inflexible. So you have to pay more to make a change to do something because it's not very flexible. You may need to pay twice as much because you have to change two platforms to do the same bit of functionality. And I think that element of legacy and tech debt is a key concept that organizations grapple with. And how we've tried to address some of the challenges really is to think about what are the consumer touch points? What are the end customer touch points? And how can you decouple those? If you can decouple them, if you can start to build common integration layers, start to build actual applications that can be more flexible, can be changed and adapted quickly, that are separate from your core legacy, that allows you to at least have almost like a two-step IT kind of process. So we've talked about how Before, there wasn't really one, there's not really one archetype. There are multiple archetypes that you can adopt. And in fact, actually, with these different models, these could apply quite well to different organizations at different parts of their lifestyle and journey. So could you elaborate a bit further around how the different models and goals and mindsets align for each of those types?
Clive, this is research that is brand new, probably only about a year old. Our feeling was there are many different kinds of platforms. And so to start this research, we came up with four different type of architects. So the first was the multi-sided marketplace. The second was a internal capability. And we have talked to so many companies that have actually started to move, as say DBS Bank has done, from project to platform, that we thought, we really, that has got to be one of our starting places, is that you build an internal capability. And that internal capability, as I said, can be one business capability, say marketplaces, or it could be, say, an HR platform or a data platform, or it could be a whole bundle of types of capabilities that you put together. Third is going to be platforms as a service, where you sell the entire platform or you sell the components of it. Think of a company like Shopify, where you can run your entire business using a platform from a company like Shopify, or you can buy modules that you plug and play together to create a business that you can use. And then the fourth kind of platform architect is what we call X as a service. And that is around taking your business capability that you are great at. So, for instance, a company like ANZ has got a payment as a service, and they became very good at using that internally and then decided, we could open this up to other financial institutions. And so now they've got a payment as a service for their customers. And it's a very different kind of business model.
Moving to platform-based business is actually quite a big commitment. It'd be great to understand from your experience and from what you've heard from the various individuals you've interacted with. What does it really take to embark on a journey like that?
We've seen different kind of models. I will say you are right in terms of it being a journey where you have to have discipline, perseverance. You also have to have great communication and set a vision. So this is where leaders come in, is to set that vision of how the organization is going to work. We've seen companies like a major telecom company that looked at their back end, said, we've got too many products and services. They started by really removing products and services that were not contributing to profitability. Then they froze their back end and, like you said, put in an API layer, a layer so that they could be flexible. And that back end still has all of that complexity, but that front end allowed them to address customer needs. And then once they built everything out on the front end, they then went back to the back end, and there they did a core replacement. Now, we've seen other companies that do what we call a migration strategy, where you build a complete platform and then you migrate module to module. Both of these migration strategies are really challenging, and it takes a lot from leadership. You've got to figure out, do you have, one, the right vision? And I think that there it's around allocating your decision rights, making sure you have the right people leading the key decisions. It's putting into place new ways of working so that your people are starting to use these platforms in efficient ways, and you're starting to get more efficiency, more productivity, and then a better customer experience. You have to develop a platform mindset. So I think one of the things about platforms is really thinking about reuse. You want to create components that you're going to reuse over and over again.
I know that when we've worked with a number of our clients, they've always had different criteria as to whether they should buy or build something. And in my view, when we've worked through organizations, it's where the reality is where you can have the biggest value driver, where you can really make a real impact and drive value at pace. That's probably where you should build and kind of own it. If it's a commodity capability, if it's something that can be obtained off the shelf, it's easy to buy it because it's not going to add value. Everyone's got that type of capability. But just talk me through, you know, how businesses should decide, how to prioritize that buy versus build versus borrow decision.
I think that your framework is actually very good. What we've seen in our transformations is that companies are looking at where is their competitive advantage. So thinking about that competitive advantage, and there you are very likely going to want your people to be based on, working on those parts of your organization. And so we have seen companies that have decided that in certain parts of their organization, they've needed to insource from, outsourced partners. But then in other places where they don't have, a basic platform that they could customize, they can then buy that, they can partner. And all of these transformations, they're hard, they're long, and every company that we have talked to has partnered to make sure that they move along and they keep moving along.
Well, look, we can't have a discussion on platforms without talking about agentic AI. It's clearly the latest flavor of AI, and it's certainly something that will have a great impact on our platform discussion.
Agentic AI is going to be really, really important. Looking at some other pieces of research at MIT CISR, I would say that organizations know that this is really important. They haven't figured out how they're going to do it yet. And so part of the problem is how do you govern this? The second is, do you need to have a human in the loop or do you need to have a human at the helm? I think one of the things that companies need to grapple with is, where do you need the humans and what is their role? Because we already do things, even without agentic AI, where you don't have a human in the loop. I mean, think of credit scoring at a bank. That gets done automatically. And honestly, I don't think that we have a lot of human participation in that process. And so I think that we need to decide kind of what are the guidelines for when you need human approval, when don't you need. I'm sure that, right off the bat, if you think about where there's lots of regulations around, say, finances and, say, healthcare, you might see those types of industries having more of that human in the loop. You might see with shopping less of that human in the loop and more of that human in the helm. I think this is one of the things we're trying to figure out is with their research on the business models is, how do you build that out so that and what are the constraints that you have, like regulation, and what's possible. Right now it feels like we've got this sort of model that we're playing with, and there's so much happening. I mean, the world is changing every 2 weeks, it seems like.
Stephanie, thank you so much for your time today. What a fascinating conversation, and really keen to see how agentic AI disrupts this place even further.
Clive, thank you so much. I am so grateful for being invited here. I love to talk about our research, and I love to talk with our member companies like Alex Partners. Thank you for having me.